All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the very first Corner Kick Extra podcast. Alex Fydryszewski, J.J. Pepe with you. Good day to you, sir.
Good day, and good day to all. Glad to finally get this up and running after we've been planning this since, I'd say, October, November. But you got to get through certain things like Thanksgiving and Christmas and the
Return of Christmas presents.
Yeah, and the New Year, which just happened to fall, on a Sunday and backed up a little bit. But glad we finally got this rolling, and let's get the show on the road here.
All right, Monday we talked on the television about Major League Soccer. Obviously, Dax McCarty getting traded was the big news of the day. Kind of threw our show for a loop a little bit. We were going to talk about Europe. Got to that at the end of the program. But now we want to stay in Europe right now to start off the show and look at the week ahead. The English Premier League this weekend may not necessarily be the sexiest, JJ, but there is still one match of significant consequence with Manchester City and Tottenham.
Yeah, it's really going to be an interesting matchup, especially with City coming off of the 4-0 thrashing. Good first 15, 20 minutes against Everton. Didn't take their chances. Had a penalty shout. But after that, Everton just took it to them. Got the goal, in the first half. Got one just after halftime, and that was game over. Pep was happy that they had 70% of the possession, but that came to very few chances after that first 15 minutes, and really showed that they're in a bit of disarray. Tottenham on the other side, they're flying right now. They could be the challengers for Chelsea. But it's going to be interesting. Away from home at the Etihad, you got to think City's really going to be looking to bounce back on this. If City put in a performance like they did against Everton, Pep's going to have some of that crowd on his back.
Well, I think it's an important match for City if they want to hold serve with the rest of the Champions League pack. Right now, as we have in front of us the standings, Spurs on 45 points, tied with Liverpool, 1 point with Arsenal on 44, City behind them on 42. A loss to Spurs coupled with results from Arsenal and Liverpool this weekend, forget some of the fans. I think there's going to be office pressure on Pep that, we brought you in and you're falling behind the pace. Spurs were very impressive on the weekend. Harry Kane, 3 goals against West Brom, a mid-side table. And you have to be concerned, I think, if you're a City fan, that, again, you have this blip on your radar. While Spurs, if you look at the results, green. That's a lot of victories in a row. They've reeled off, 5 on the trot in all competitions. They are playing as well as anybody in England at the moment.
Yeah, Harry Kane seems to have found his stride again after he came back from injury there, and he's been, I think, badly needed. It also shows a little bit of the fitness Tottenham up top. So they're hitting all the right buttons right now. I mean, for me, West Brom, although they're mid-table, they were dreadful. That game was over after 12 minutes. They are the contenders right now. It'll be interesting to see what happens when they get back in Europe. 'Cause they're down in the Europa League now, although I think Pochettino won't take that as seriously if they're within shouting distance of Chelsea. This is one of those, you look at the form and just how the teams have played recently, and I think you automatically say Tottenham's going to go in there and win. I don't think so. I think City's going to get something from this game. I think that, you'll see a little bit more urgency maybe. I don't think Tottenham's going to go in and play like Everton did. Everton played it perfectly, tactically. 3 in the back, 5 in the midfield. They swallowed up De Bruyne and Silva. Aguero couldn't get the ball, and they just couldn't break anybody down. I don't think Tottenham's going to play like that. I think Tottenham's going to come out and get after them a little bit, and I think that might help City a little more than an opponent that packs it in.
Open up some opportunities going the other way because Spurs will play a little bit higher.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that I think that they might get a draw out of this. I can see this one ending in a draw, kind of salvaging City a little bit with where they are in terms of the Champions League race, because really that's all they have left to play for. I think their title hopes are done. Pep came out and threw the towel in after the Everton game. You can question it, but I think he's being realistic. They're 10 points back, and Chelsea at the top of the table play one match a week for the rest of the season, unless they have an FA Cup replay somewhere along the way. It's their title to lose. I don't think City or a United can catch them. Arsenal are barely on that threshold. But I do think City are going to still be in that position to chase fourth.
I would even question at this point if Liverpool and Tottenham have enough. They're currently sitting 7 points behind. That's three matches basically. And again, they have a little bit more congestion. Chelsea can focus in on their weekend league match every week, and it puts you at an advantage. And I think for Chelsea, I know their fans might have been upset with last year's finish, and obviously, changes came down the pipe in a lot of different ways. But you have a team that has played so consistently deep into Europe for so many years. I think it's almost like United syndrome after a while, where the legs just give out on you, and you need that season to regenerate. And there's no reason to say that next year they're not back at top of the table fighting for first place in England and making a deep run in Champions League, because they're certainly that good.
Yeah, I think last season was the outlier for a side like Chelsea. They were just so poor early on. I don't think Mourinho helped anything. They made the right move by getting rid of him, but they were never going to get back on track for the rest of the season. They finished respectable, but then when you turn to this season, they brought in, I think, the best manager that was available. I think Conte was a great pickup for them. And even early on, it was a little bumpy until he made that switch to three in the back. He brought a little bit of that, Juve, a little of that Italian team in, tactically that he was doing. And these guys got it quickly. And that's why, they went, unbeaten in 11 or 12, that run that recently ended. But they're primed for the title. Liverpool's biggest congested period is now. They've got FA Cup replay today against Plymouth Argyle away, which you can probably imagine they didn't want. Then on the weekend, a little reprieve. They're home to Swansea, the 3-point ATM machine. That should be an easy win for them. But then they have the midweek match in the English Football League trophy against Southampton. And then you get Chelsea, a week later. That's going to determine their title run if they can challenge. Is that match with Chelsea? If they lose, that would put them, because you figure Chelsea will beat Hull City this weekend, so they'll each hold serve. That would put Liverpool 10 points back. I don't think they would catch Chelsea at 10 points back. Even without, having Europe themselves, I just don't think Chelsea would drop 10 points that Liverpool could gain on. And you figure Liverpool's going to drop one or two again. Chelsea haven't dropped anything outside of the top five or top six. And they only have 4 more games against those upper echelon teams. They've already blown through most of the matches. So I think they're going to be in a position where they will just ride this through. Chelsea can really, I think, seal it up when they get through this little run here. They get Liverpool and Arsenal pretty close together, back to back. If they take, I'll say, 4 or 6 points from those two games, over. I think they got it.
At that point, yeah, it would be almost impossible to catch them. They're playing so well that without a complete capitulation and with those two returns already out of the way, it would be very, very unlikely for them to come down. The rest of the weekend in England, it's really not much worth talking about. You have to figure it was going to happen eventually, with the way the schedule has to fall. That you'll have the quote unquote bad weekend, the boring weekend. There's not a whole lot of intrigue in the other contests. West Brom, Sunderland, Stoke and United. Palace and Everton, again, you mentioned Liverpool, Swansea. You go ahead to Sunday, maybe the best match of the day, probably of the whole weekend, Southampton and Leicester. At that point, and Leicester certainly off pace from where they were at last year, but it's what you expected, I think.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Leicester last year, it was the magical run. I think all the players on that side had what we would say here is their career year, and everybody had it at the same time. They didn't have the other competitions that one or two of the other sides had, and I think it's safe to say all the big boys were off. I mean, Chelsea were way down. United struggled mightily. Tottenham made that same push, but just couldn't put it together at the end to overtake Leicester. Arsenal were their typical selves, and Liverpool were, up and down all season. All the stars aligned. Really, this is what you expected of Leicester last season, what they're doing this season. They're a bottom half of the table club. It's just where they are. Do I think they'll get relegated? No, there's plenty of teams worse than they are. But having said that, look at what they're doing in the Champions League. They got to the knockout rounds. They'll be real happy with that. They'll get some nice money in. I think one of the things that you're seeing, it's not that hangover. I think this was just, they went back to form. And I don't think there was anything wrong with that. I think it was expected. So I think Southampton, I think they're going to give them a run. I think Southampton might take it at home. The match I'm actually looking forward to outside of those, I think that Stoke United match is going to be interesting. United came off that gutsy performance against Liverpool. Wasn't working one way. Josie said, okay, they're going to press us high. We're just going to go over the top. And it worked. They were much better in the second half. They got the goal. I think the 1-1 was justified there. Stoke, if I recall, were 3-0 winners on the weekend. They're always a little up and down. 3-1 against Sunderland. And they're playing at the, whatever they call the Britannia now. But, I think that'll be a fairly good matchup. I think United will get it at the end. I think they have a little too much. But I think that out of the, outside of that City Tottenham game, for me, that's the one that I'll keep an eye on. Plus, United need that win to stay within touching distance of the Champions League spots. You lose that, and if Arsenal and Liverpool both win, all of a sudden you're 5, 6, 7 points out. Now you're getting yourself a little bit of a mountain to climb. So they have to be careful here.
And you'd have to imagine, too, that Europa League, another year in Manchester, is not going to go over very well.
It won't. Having said that, they're still in it. I think they get through this next round, and I think they're going to take it very seriously. That's the back door into Europe, into the Champions League for them. You win the Europa League, you go into the Champions League. I can see United getting to the point where, they play Saint Etienne. They're struggling in France this year. They're around 7th or 8th.
United should be able to get through that with relatively little trouble. And then even the rest of the Europa League group that's left in this round of 32. One of Villarreal or Roma will be eliminated, so there's a serious threat there that will be averted.
Yeah. Fiorentina, Mönchengladbach, you'll get the same thing.
Someone else will be eliminated from that round as well, and then there could be some lesser teams that advance, and depending where the chips fall, United gets another easy draw.
And Sevilla's not in it this year, so that's good for everybody.
That's their tournament.
The specialists are out, so it's definitely doable for them to take that route, especially if they fall, drop some points here and there. I think then you're going to see Mourinho putting out the strongest sides and going for the Champions League that way. That's just what I think he's going to do. But
it might be the only way they can get there next year.
I think in the end it's going to be. You're starting to look at everything, and I think the whole city of Manchester may not have a Champions League side next year. With the way City have been up and down, Arsenal, you just have a feeling they're going to do it again and hold on. Liverpool, I think, will have
Fourth.
enough to stay in the top four. I don't think Tottenham will fall off that much. So, the question that if you're one of the Manchester clubs is who are you going to catch? And I think right now they're saying to themselves it's probably Arsenal or Liverpool, just the way form has been, that they can nick one of the, bring one of those two back. It's just hard to see Tottenham coming back. But when you look at this, Manchester City have the most losses at 5. Everybody else only has 2 or 3, including United. So, they went on that good run, but really didn't gain a lot of ground. So okay, you dropped 2 points at home against Liverpool. I don't think that was the worst result. In the end, that draw may come out to be very beneficial. Going to be interesting the next few weeks.
It's worth watching. What else is on your European radar this weekend? I know that you wanted to talk a little bit about the next level down in the championship. Is that something you'd like to touch on briefly before we take a little break here?
I think just really quick, the Friday match is going to be a good one. We're looking at Brighton Hove Albion against Sheffield Wednesday. That's 3rd against 6th. That'll have big implications on second against 6th. That'll have implications on the automatic promotion end because Leeds have been playing phenomenal right now. They've been storming up the table up to 3rd. Good to see them really making that push. Gary Monk, who was sacked by Swansea last season, have Leeds firing on all cylinders. So if Brighton Hove drops some points and Leeds win again, they're going to be in the hunt. Newcastle then have to keep an eye over their shoulder because now a 3rd team's in it instead of just 2 teams running away. So that'll be a really interesting match being played on Friday.
I like Leeds, like you said. We talked about them a little bit earlier on the television show at the start of the season as a team to watch down the championship. And then before the U.S. played New Zealand, we talked about Chris Wood again, specifically as a top player for them. 14 goals. He's good for 3rd in the championship right now, probably on his way to a Premier League contract next year, unless, of course, Leeds is on their way to the Premier League, which is certainly possible. So that's going to be a big game for Brighton against Sheffield on Friday to try to hold serve to keep their lead in the top 2, along with Newcastle, who I think it's kind of expected down and up.
Yeah, I didn't expect it, to be honest. I thought Rafa, just being Rafa, would have lost the plot early. I thought they would have been a little closer to where Villa was at the beginning of the season, struggling to get their feet until they brought in a different manager. But all credit to Rafa Benitez. He had them firing on all cylinders from the beginning of the season. They deserve where they are. A little up and down the last 5 games, trying to find that little bit of form. But every team usually goes through it in the championship. The question is now, can they get out of it and just push on and seal up promotion? I think they will. Just to back to Leeds real quick, that's a Yorkshire derby against Barnsley there, and they're away at Oakwell. That is not a guaranteed 3 points. So that's going to be one to keep an eye on, especially if Brighton slip up. What happens with Leeds? Barnsley sitting in 10th. They're not a pushover like they were maybe a season or 2 ago where they were struggling in the championship. So that's going to be, you're going to have some fired up supporters in the crowd there. That game's going to have some heat to it. So I look forward to that one.
I think final game in the championship this weekend worth looking at. Reading against Derby. That game's at Derby County. Derby, 7th place, 40 points. Reading, 4th place on 46 points, along with Huddersfield, Sheffield Wednesday on 45. A win by Derby puts them right into the hunt. Huddersfield takes on Ipswich in their match this weekend. Ipswich mid-table, you'd expect the result for Huddersfield, especially being at home. Yeah. But a win by Derby over Reading, and now you've got another team that's thrown their hat into the playoff mix.
I think there's a good chance that one of the teams currently occupying 4th through 6th will fall out. It could be Wednesday. It could be Huddersfield Town. Do they have enough to stay up there all season? They've been, really flying high. It's going to be questions are being asked. Derby is right behind Fulham, and even Preston are, point behind Derby. Norwich still floating around, although they hit a really bad patch.
Only 1 win from 5.
Yeah, but there's nothing to say that they can't turn that around quickly. I think once you go beyond Norwich, I don't think Birmingham have enough. I think Villa are another season away. They just don't have the firepower up top, and you're seeing that. They've only scored more than 2 goals in a game. You have to go back to November since the last time they did that. So when they went a goal behind the Wolves, you knew they weren't going to win. At best, you could get a draw. So they're still missing some pieces, and I think once you go beyond that, somebody would have to go on one of those epic Juventus runs of last year where they just went, 15, 16 matches without a loss to climb the table quickly, and I don't think any of them are built for it.
That said, though, there's still, you're looking at a potential 9-team race down in the championship. Mm-hmm. Might be more interesting than the Premier League at this point.
Yeah, last year, the last 2 seasons were really good down there. Leicester really spiced up and made the Premier League race so interesting last season. This year, with Chelsea, you just think that they have that edge. Unless they drop some points and really come back to the pack where it gets down to 3 or 4 points, the championship is probably where it's at. And if Newcastle and Brighton and Hove slip up a little bit to where Leeds are within touching distance, and then a Reading or Huddersfield Town wind up getting back into touching distance, now it's all to play for everywhere. The top 2 spots for automatic, who doesn't get that, then you're going to look a little bit further down, and it's who's in and who's out of the playoff spot. The championship have been lucky enough the last few years to give that to us. Hopefully they give it to us again, because it's always great to watch, and it's hundreds. It's 100 million pounds plus now on the table for these clubs to get promoted. So when you say it's all to play for,
it literally is
all to play for there.
I think that's a good way to end our first segment. We'll take a little break, and then we'll get back here in 60 seconds. The podiatric practice of Dr. David Hay Jr. is celebrating their 60th year of quality family foot care in Emmaus in 2016. At the podiatric practice of Dr. David Hay Jr., we provide a wide variety of services from pediatric to geriatric care of ankles, feet, heels, arches, and more. We know that when your feet hurt, your whole body hurts, making podiatric care an integral part of human health. We perform most procedures in our Emmaus office and also offer procedures at Lehigh Valley Hospital. Dr. Hay also makes in-home and nursing home visits. After 60 years in Emmaus, the Hay family practice has no intentions of slowing down or retiring anytime soon, and in fact, they have expanded their staff to now include Dr. Jason Fisk-Bear, an Emmaus native and EHS grad. Dr. Fisk-Bear has attended Penn State and Temple throughout his medical education and training, and now comes home to Emmaus to join the Hay family podiatric team. The office of Dr. David Hay Jr. is open Monday from 8 to 5, Tuesday from 8 to 8, Wednesday from 8 to 4, Thursday from 9 to 5, and Friday from 8 to 4. They are located at 680 Harrison Street in Emmaus and can be reached at 610-965-9410. That's 610-965-9410 for the podiatric office of Dr. David Hay Jr., where we treat you like family. The E.F. Butts Insurance Agency, located at 3333 West Emmaus Avenue in Emmaus, has been serving the insurance needs of the Lehigh Valley since 1946. E.F. Butts Insurance is a family tradition passed down from generation to generation of Lehigh Valley residents. E.F. Butts Insurance covers a wide variety of home, life, auto, and business insurance. John Yelovich and his staff are an independent agency, meaning they work for you, not the insurance provider, to get fair coverage and service from a carefully selected group of insurance providers. E.F. Butts Insurance is open Monday through Friday from 9 to 5 and can be reached at 610-965-2824. That's 610-965-2824. 824. Be sure to visit them on the web at www.efbootsins.com. That's the EF Boots Insurance Agency. Above all, in service. Welcome back to Corner Kick Extra. Alex Fydryszewski, J.J. Pepe with you. The second segment today, we're going to look at the rest of the European weekend coming up, and then we'll wrap up the program in our final segment by bringing it back here to North America, specifically to the United States, talk a little bit about Major League Soccer. Dom Dwyer, big news with him regarding his U.S. citizenship status, and then some MLS potential expansion options. That'll be the rest of our program. But we do start this segment over in Europe. Return of the Bundesliga, touched on it briefly on Monday, gets back up and running this weekend. Bayern Munich back in the mix against Freiburg, who are currently in 8th. Red Bull Leipzig, Eintracht Frankfurt, big game to start out on Saturday. That's 12:30 kickoff in Leipzig.
Yeah, that is going to be one of the bigger matches across continent on the weekend. Leipzig dropped that match against Munich just before the winter break, which ensured Munich would be the winter champion of the Bundesliga. It's very rare that the winter champion costs up the title at the end, but it is only a 3-point gap. And Munich playing away to Freiburg, just coming off the long break. Maybe on Friday we see a little bit of a surprise. I'd be lying if I said I didn't hope so. For me, the Bundesliga is a little bit like Serie A. You need to get a new champion in there. Even if Munich were to come back and win it next year, somebody else needs to get in there. It's been a while since Dortmund won it. I think Leipzig really are going to be the only contenders. Big match at home. They got to say right the ship a little bit, but when you get 3 weeks or so, it helps, I think, just to calm everybody down after that poor performance against Munich. That game, I think, was over kind of on the early side, too. Munich had that in control the whole time. So, going to be very interesting second half of the Bundesliga season. I'll tell you, I'm really excited for it. I've really enjoyed watching it this year. Last year, I got into it a little bit, but not as much. For me personally, I think the quality of the Premier League games have been down this season. So, I've watched more of the Bundesliga. I've enjoyed what I've seen. The other big match is on Sunday in the Bundesliga, where we have Leverkusen against Hertha Berlin. Important match for Hertha, trying to hold on to their Champions League spot. Leverkusen trying to get back on track a little bit of a down season for them, which is a little bit of a surprise. But, one of those things, they all go through it. I think, Schalke's also going through it. The important thing is not to become a Werder Bremen or a Stuttgart where you start putting these together and all of a sudden you're relegated. That's why Stuttgart's down in Bundesliga 2. Even Hamburger, they've been going through this couple of years now. What do they call them, the old dinosaur or whatever. They've never been relegated since the start of the Bundesliga.
They're flirting with it right now.
And they were in the playoff last year. They have that clock in the stadium. It keeps counting up, where here we have the one for the debt and everything else, or by now all the bars have them for St. Paddy's Day. Hamburgers, clock keeps running, and they thought last year was finally going to get turned off. Well, they managed to stay up in the playoff, and they're sitting in that playoff spot again. They had a dreadful start. They came back, got a couple wins there. Towards the end, they won 3 out of 4, which was good for them. Bobby Wood came back from a needless red card, and I think he had an extra game tacked onto it. So he was suspended, came back, he scored a couple goals. That's important for him and real important for the club as they try and claw their way back into it.
Hamburger comes out of the winter break in the Bundesliga and immediately steps into a big match for them, not necessarily in terms of Bundesliga standard, but for Hamburger. They'll take on Wolfsburg, who are currently 3 points ahead of them. They're in a tie, 3-way tie for 13th with Mönchengladbach and the aforementioned Werder Bremen. A win for Hamburger, now this is on the road, that might be asking a tall order, but a win for them, and that clock gets a little bit safer, though they're not out of the woods yet. But if you look at the teams below them, I think Darmstadt on 8 points, really done and dusted. Yeah. Ingolstadt on 12 points. They had a pretty good year last year. They were able to survive. The class that they didn't bring in or failed to bring in over the summer has now shown. And you mentioned with Stuttgart that Bundesliga 2 drop is very similar to the championship in England, where you can go down and then coming back up can be a chore. Stuttgart currently tied for second, but not out of the woods yet. A surprise Heidenheim team down there, and then Union Berlin, who's a team that's flirted around the upper echelons of the second Bundesliga over the last few years, threatening as well. So you don't want to go down, because when you do drop down, you run into that next level of club where you have your Kaiserslauterns and your St. Paulis and the like, where it can get tough to come back up.
Yeah, and Kaiserslautern is one of those. Their team I love to follow in Germany, and they went down. I think it was around 5 years ago, and just haven't been able to get a sniff. They shouldn't say they haven't had a sniff. About 2 or 3 seasons ago, they made a strong push. They didn't get there in the end, and last season was bad. This season is worse. Take a look at Nuremberg. Hung around a lot last year around the promotion area. I believe they actually lost to Hamburger in the playoff, and now they're sitting mid-table in Bundesliga 2. Hannover 96 dropped down. They're sitting in second, so they're sitting pretty now as the bounce-back team. What I would really like to see is I would like to see Union Berlin from those teams hanging around the top. I'd love to see them get up there. I've never seen a Berlin derby in the Bundesliga 1. I think to see that would be something extraordinary. So I'm hoping they get up there, and I'm hoping to see St. Pauli climb back off the top of the table. They're always a fun club just because of the way the support is. I actually, when I was over there in 2006, went to Hamburg for a couple matches. I was actually in the stadium of Hamburger, but we drove into St. Pauli to go past their ground. It was just a great little thing to go past. It's a shame we couldn't get in. I wanted to sneak in and try and get some pictures, but it's a great little section in part of Hamburg. When they were up in the Bundesliga, it was just a fun atmosphere when you could catch them on television somewhere or see some highlights. They're struggling mightily at the foot of the table. But you're right, 1860 Munich stuck down there for a long time. And it's very difficult to bounce back up.
I think you make a good point, too, about the Bundesliga, and then we'll move on to Serie A. Mm-hmm. It's a league that, just because of the lack of TV exposure over the years, I think was passed by a lot of fans because they simply just didn't know enough about the league.
Yeah, they're lost on Goal TV.
The help came with that Fox contract, which opened the eyes of the world to the quality and depth in the German league, and I think it helped that Winalda got involved with those broadcasts. They had him in, and he's a guy who was an American that went over there and played in Germany, so he has that experience, and he can add those personal stories where American fans can start to connect. Now, I've always liked the Bundesliga, Goal TV. It was kind of my go-to to watch them, like you said. But now that it is so readily available, even my exposure to the Bundesliga has become much more because you have so many more games on. You get to see more than just, say, Bayern, Dortmund. You see those same teams every week. Now you get a whole host of matches, and you can see, Cologne and Freiburg and Mainz and Schalke, and you get to learn more about these teams and these players. It's a heck of a league, and to wrap it up for me, I agree with you. You want to see a little more spice in the Bundesliga. It's great to see Hertha Berlin back on track and up in the top 3. Dortmund's got to get their act together to try to make a push next year, and I think Leipzig is here to stay. And one of those 3 has to figure out a way, and it might be Leipzig, and German football fans might not like it, but it might be Leipzig that knocks them off the perch. It may take a year or 2 for them to get there, but they have the deep pockets to do it.
Yeah, Dortmund, I think right now they're going to be a little up and down. When you have that many young players in your side, they're going to blow a little hot and cold. And I think that's what they're seeing this season, especially towards the end there. A few draws in a row really kind of knocked them onto the back foot a little bit and took out their push, for possibly contending for the title. If they get back in the Champions League, I think that's a good season for them considering where they are. Hertha Berlin, you hope, can keep building on this. They got promoted. They had a couple seasons towards the bottom of the table. Now it looks like they're pushing on. Leipzig, if they were to win the title, I think they may supplant Munich as the team that everybody hates. A lot of people don't like how they're doing this over there. But for me, I just want to see somebody else win it. And then, like I said, if Munich win it next year, if Leipzig can get it this year, I think that's just great for the league. But it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be an interesting second half to the season. I like the way Fox Sports really presents it here. Like you said, Winalda, Ian Joy played over there. They bring Karofsky now and again. So they have a nice little thing going on there. I do like their match selection. Obviously, the Friday match is the Friday match. You don't have much to say. But when you get into the Saturday match, I think they've been doing well with who they've been showing. And it's going to be interesting. I think the second half of the season, no matter when they play, we're going to see Leipzig a little more, especially if they're challenging. We'll see Hertha a little more. I think it'll take a little bit of the England tone, where on the big channels they always show Chelsea, United, Liverpool, but it's not going to be out of popularity. I think it's going to be out of the title race. If Dortmund can stay close, we will see a little bit more. Plus, with Pulisic there, that keeps them on TV a little bit, and they are exciting to watch no matter who they play. So it's definitely going to be a fun second half. I'm looking forward to Fox Sports showing that 1 and 2 and just getting even more engrossed into that league.
Move along now to Serie A, one of the now again underrated leagues in Europe, as the TV well is not necessarily what it once was. Maybe never was, but we grew up in New Jersey, and Rai provided all I needed to know. So, we talked about this on Monday in quite a bit of depth. But there are some good matches up on the weekend. Fiorentina did the job last weekend with a 2-1 victory over Juventus. Got to watch that replay last night that you had touched upon of the Torino-Milan game on Monday. I didn't get to see it live, but I got a chance to watch it last night, and boy, did they hand that one away.
Yeah, Torino they had it the first half. They could have wrapped that up. Once that penalty was missed, that just brought Milan, gave them some life where there wasn't any. And, Milan starting to find, we'll see some of that old AC Milan style. Got back into it, got the 2 goals, earned the point, sitting in 5th. This is a very good season for them. They're nipping at the heels of trying to get into the Champions League. For me, I think they'll come up a little bit short. I think Napoli and Roma are the two that I think they've got a little too much quality, as we talked about a little earlier. With Milic coming back for Napoli, that's really going to help them going forward, where when he got injured, they struggled a bit for goals. They're going to be right up in there. I think, the big game this weekend, and just bring Napoli into it, is Milan-Napoli at the San Siro. It's a place that Napoli supporters love to see their side go and take 3 points from. I think it's going to be a very good match. Napoli need to win to keep in touching distance of the title race. Milan need it for Champions League. Very important match for both sides. When you look at the overall scope, with Juventus dropping points to Fiorentina, even though Napoli are 4 points back and Juventus have the extra game to play, Napoli really trying to battle Roma for who's going to be the one to challenge. I think they almost have to win this. If they fall any further back, they're going to run into trouble. Especially one that with Champions League coming up, with Real Madrid, you got to get your points in now before you start hitting those 2 midweek games against Real.
Juve, big match for them this weekend. They'll take on 4th place Lazio, who can join the fight if they can pull off a win. If Roma can pick up a victory over Cagliari, coupled with a Juve draw or loss, now all of a sudden you've got a new team in first place, and it's not Juventus. You get a Napoli win, and now all hell has broken loose in Italy. It's not to say that it will play out that way, but theoretically, if Lazio can find a way on the road, which is a tall order, and I personally don't think they will. Juve just a little too good on the home end. But if Lazio, let's play this out, theoretically, can find a way, you've got a 4-team race at the top that could go down to the wire.
Yeah, and what would help all this, Lazio and Juventus are the first match Sunday morning. With Napoli haven't played the day before. If they win, pressure's already starting to come on to Juve a little bit. Then if they drop points, now it opens it up. Roma have the late game of the weekend, so they would know going in if Juve don't win. So even if they draw, Roma would know that if they can beat Cagliari at home, they'll be top of the table at the end of the weekend. So it could put a little extra emphasis on their game, maybe a little extra pressure to get that result. It's when they should get, at the Stadio Olimpico. But, a couple big matches there. I really want to see Lazio do this. For me, Serie A need a new champion. Juve won, 5 in a row now. They just need somebody else, kind of like Germany. Listen, Juve get it back next season, it's fine. But somebody else has to get in there to bring some attractiveness back to this league. I'd still say Juve are the favorites. The second half of the season, most of the big teams go to Turin. I don't know how this happens with the schedule makers, how Juve went away to almost all of them in the first half of the season, now get them all at home. It's a little shady if you ask me, but it's definitely going to be an interesting second half.
Computer generated. It's computer generated.
Yes, it is.
And possibly man manipulated.
Yes.
But that said, Roma will know. They'll know by lunchtime what their job is. And for those of us here in North America, we'll know by the time we're eating breakfast, for most of us, what's going to happen. That is a 6:30 New York East Coast kickoff. Most of us probably won't even be up for it. We'll know by the time we wake up and have our first cup of coffee whether Roma can end the day in first place. And I think that's fascinating. It's a shame that the Juve-Lazio game is the noon game over there, because I would love to be able to really be wide-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready to go for that one. Unfortunately, I might be groggy-eyed in front of the computer, but I'm looking forward to this weekend in Italy. I think we'll find out a lot. We'll sort out quite a bit of what's going on. And Inter also takes on lowly Palermo right now. So a win by Inter pushes them to 39 points, and they're hovering right around then the Europa League spots, which then can create a mess down there. Let's say Juve beats Lazio. Then you've got 40. Milan is there on 37, and Inter win pushes them to 35, jumps them over AC Milan. Still quite a bit to play for in Italy. Fiorentina might be a little too far back on 30 points to make up the Europa League, but I guess if you need a team to root for that's your underdog this year in Italy, Atalanta hovering there at 35 points. Don't know if they have enough quality to get over the hump, but they're certainly in the mix coming into the new year.
They're a little bit of Sassuolo of last season, so it's good to see them there. I don't think they'll be able to keep it up. I'd be surprised if they did. Just like I don't think Torino will keep on the heels of Fiorentina and make the push on to Inter. I think Fiorentina will probably get up there into 7th. Atalanta might hold on, but I don't see them pushing on up the table really much further.
One final look across Europe before we take our next break, our second break. We go to Ligue 1, a two-way tie for first place, Monaco and Nice on 45 points, PSG behind them at 42. Then really it's the pretenders after that point. Lyon would have to make up an 8-point gap to get into the Champions League places with PSG, Nice, and Monaco currently in them. Guingamp and Olympique Marseille are currently tied for 5th on 30 points. Then there's everyone else after that. Really, only one match you feel worth discussing at the weekend in France?
Yeah, the Lyon-Marseille match, it's always a heated affair. Going back probably to the 90s when Lyon was whipping off all those titles and Marseille were trying to chase them down with everybody else. But that's really, for me, the only one. I think Monaco, Nice, PSG will all see 3 points put on into the account. But Lyon Marseille, always a fun match. Marseille actually having a decent season.
They've struggled quite a bit in recent years.
They did.
Close to the relegation zone a few times. They flirted down with it for portions of seasons, good portions of seasons the last few years. And I think for the game in France and for Ligue 1, who have a bit of a TV deal now, they need them to be good.
Yeah, it'd be good to have Marseille back. It's good seeing Lyon back because after winning all those titles, they fell off a little bit, especially when the PSG money came in. They were probably the side that went down the hardest. It's good to see them back. But, you're hoping teams like that can get back on track because right now, with PSG having a little bit of an off year, it's fun to watch. Hopefully somebody else will win it, either Monaco or Nice, to break the PSG spell. And then, Lyon and Marseille can push on a little bit more next year. That could really be a fascinating league to watch where we could see some of the, like a little bit of where we are with Italy on the cusp of a 5 or 16 title race. So, but that Lyon-Marseille match, always worth a quick mention because it's always a feisty affair. And with as close as you are in the table, Marseille trying to get into the Europa League spots, 4 points behind Lyon. I think there'll be a little juice to that one.
I think, too, and this probably is something that should be a topic maybe for next week's show. You talked about maybe Leipzig becoming the hated team in Germany for how they've been constructed by Dietrich Mateschitz, much like Salzburg is now the kind of hated team, if you'd like to say, in Austria. Is this an epidemic that is across the continent, though, because of the way the game has changed? There is lots of money from all over the world that's been pumped into European soccer and into other nations as well. So is it necessarily fair to say, oh, I hate Leipzig because Dietrich Mateschitz has given them money, but at the same time be sitting in a pub in London saying, Chelsea is our name, Roman Abramovich is oil money. So I think to get over that hump now in any league, it's not like it was, say, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, where it was community trust-based clubs. You need that money now, no matter what league you are in. You could be in, I'll tell you just even my own experience, the league I pay the most attention to is in Poland. If you took away the money from Warsaw, what are they? They're probably a mid-table club. I mean, you saw it in Krakow. Wisła Krakow had an owner who said, you know what? 15 years, we won so much, I'm done, I'm pulling the money, I'm selling the club. Top 2 to 9th. It's going to happen in just, I guess you want to say, global football now. Might be a topic for another day. I'm going to cut myself off before I get going.
I'll say it depends on the country. Germany is a little different because you still have the 51% of the club has to be owned, we'll say, by the community, and 49% can be owned by an individual. And most of the clubs aren't run that way. And, Red Bull Leipzig, they feel it's corporate. Even Munich aren't, believed to be that way. They just bring in money hand over fist because they own that stadium and they keep everything. And it's such a leg up on everybody else. Plus, you're probably the most followed team worldwide of all the German sides. That's why I think Leipzig is so hated. Hoffenheim were like that a little bit. They had the money man come in, he took them up to the Bundesliga, and a lot of people weren't too happy with them because they felt, oh, well, he'll get tired, the money will run out, and they'll finally go down and struggle, and you've kind of seen that. He pulled back on the reins, and you saw him fall off because I think the first year they went up, they were hovering around the top 6. So you had a little of that. England, they're different bear over there. I think they don't care as much. Bring the money, make us good, win us a title, get us in the Champions League. That's what we want. And when it gets unfortunate when you get into a country like France, because the only club that had that happen was PSG. So there's nobody else with them. Everybody else is trying to do it the way that they've always done it. And PSG just got a ton of oil money in, and it was okay. They became the best over a season. It took them 1 year to get it right, and then they've been on top ever since by I mean, acres. Zlatan leaves and they've fallen off the pace a little bit. Italy had the Juve got relegated. They bounced back. They built their own stadium, and when they did that, they jumped ahead of everybody.
The rental fees really, that can be crippling for you.
And when you don't own the stadium, control the stadium, Juve had a 50,000 seat stadium that 20,000 people went to. Now they get more on a more consistent basis. And like I say, they sell out every week. They played, I think it was Bologna, and you could see white seats open everywhere. But it's Bologna. But still, it's got it's
everything
built like
theirs.
an English stadium. If it rains, people still go. If you look at
Fiorentina,
I'll use Napoli.
Napoli, same thing.
The Stadio San Paolo. If it rains, you don't see any supporters. Whoever goes, they're either sitting in the upper deck or they're underneath. They don't come down into the seats by the field except for the big games, until they catch up. And Rome is trying to do that with their American owner. They want to build a new stadium for them that would be, that new intimate stadium, which most grounds aren't in Italy, and that's their biggest problem. That's why Juve have jumped so far. And then year after year, they go the deepest in the Champions League, and they were getting more money out of the pot. That's why it's important that Napoli got through. They're going to keep some of that extra money Juve was getting year over year over year.
That's an interesting thing, real quick, and I'll call it on this topic. When I was in Montreal 2 years ago, when I went up to watch Nesta and DeVio play, they had an article in their game day program where it was an interview with those guys about, well, how are you what did you think of America and Canada? Did you have fun here? This and that. And they said, what's the biggest difference? And they both said the stadiums. And they said the biggest problem Italian soccer faces is that the teams don't own the stadiums. So if they can't invest into themselves, they continue to fall behind. And I think it's a good point you make, that if you own your building, all the money's yours. The beer money's yours. The food money's yours. The advertising space you sell in the stadium is all yours. You're not sharing that with anybody, and it goes a long way. And then, of course, the oil owners and things like that can always help you out in other situations. But we'll take our final 60-second break. Then when we come back, we'll wrap things up with soccer in North America. Hang loose. The E.F. Butts Insurance Agency, located at 3333 West Emmaus Avenue in Emmaus, has been serving the insurance needs of the Lehigh Valley since 1946. E.F. Butts Insurance is a family tradition passed down from generation to generation of Lehigh Valley resident. E.F. Butts Insurance covers a wide variety of home, life, auto, and business insurance. John Yelovich and his staff are an independent agency, meaning they work for you, not the insurance provider, to get fair coverage and service from a carefully selected group of insurance providers. E.F. Butts Insurance is open Monday through Friday from 9 to 5 and can be reached at 610-965-2824. That's 610-965-2824. Be sure to visit them on the web at www.efbuttsins.com. That's the E.F. Butts Insurance Agency. Above all, in service. The podiatric practice of Dr. David Hay Jr. is celebrating their 60th year of quality family foot care in Emmaus in 2016. At the podiatric practice of Dr. David Hay Jr., we provide a wide variety of services from pediatric to geriatric care of ankles, feet, heels, arches, and more. We know that when your feet hurt, your whole body hurts, making podiatric care an integral part of human health. We perform most procedures in our Emmaus office and also offer procedures at Lehigh Valley Hospital. Dr. Hay also makes in-home and nursing home visits. After 60 years in Emmaus, the Hay family practice has no intentions of slowing down or retiring anytime soon, and in fact, they have expanded their staff to now include Dr. Jason Fisk-Bear, an Emmaus native and EHS grad. Dr. Fisk-Bear has attended Penn State and Temple throughout his medical education and training, and now comes home to Emmaus to join the Hay family podiatric team. The office of Dr. David Hay Jr. is open Monday from 8 to 5, Tuesday from 8 to 8, Wednesday from 8 to 4, Thursday from 9 to 5, and Friday from 8 to 4. They are located at 680 Harrison Street in Emmaus and can be reached at 610-965-9410. That's
965-9410 for the podiatric office of Dr. David Hay Jr., where we treat you like family.
Welcome back to the final portion of the Corner Kick Extra, the very first one. Alex Fydryszewski, J.J. Pepe with you. A dream has finally become a reality, J.J. Another dream that'll become reality someday, but we can't talk about that one right now. But it's been going good so far. I think we're off to a pretty good start here. Let's bring it back now to North America. We'll start off with probably the most important piece this week outside of the Dax McCarty issue, which we covered on Monday, being traded to Chicago, also known as sold in other portions of the world.
Yeah.
But it's that Dom Dwyer, Sporting Kansas City striker, says he will be eligible for U.S. citizenship in February, and then it's just a matter of FIFA paperwork, and he can play for the United States. And striker is a position where we've talked about the U.S. has been looking for a little bit of consistency and to have that third option maybe, because you do have Josie and Bobby Wood, who's the third guy, and for quite some time now the third guy has been Chris Wondolowski. At 33, he's done a job in MLS, never really found it for the national team, but he's kind of always been that guy. There's nobody else, so we bring him into the camp. Maybe Dwyer is that next guy, and he'll push the first two.
Yeah, I think for the U.S. men's national team, this couldn't have come at a better time. Dom has been a very good MLS striker. Like everything else, we don't know how it would translate to the international level. I think he would be a good guy to have in the squad. I think you're right. He will push Bobby Wood, Josie Altidore. Josie's had the history of injuries the last couple of years, which would kind of leave, if he gets injured again, would have left Bobby Wood on his own almost, like you said, with Wando as the backup. And to be honest, he's just never really performed at that level. He may be great in training and push the guys there, but once he gets into the games, he's just not good enough. I'm interested to see if Dom Dwyer is. If he gets his citizenship in February, who knows how long it takes to do that paperwork, but the question becomes, is he an option for March? And those qualifiers. And if he is, does the Bruce bring him in, or does he wait until the summer? Now, I think waiting until the summer is, don't forget, there's 2 more qualifiers in June before the Gold Cup. So this is going to give the Bruce a little bit to think about. Do you try and bring him in for the qualifiers, or do you wait for, say, the Gold Cup over the summer when, it's important? But to be fair, Bruce's job right now isn't to win the Gold Cup. Bruce's sole job is to get this team to Russia. That's it. If the U.S. goes out in the group stage of the Gold Cup this summer but still qualifies for Russia, job well done. And I'm interested to see how Dom Dwyer can help get this team to Russia, because that's what this is going to come down to.
It's the most important part of the Bruce Arena project. It is to right the ship, and you and I were in Columbus for the World Cup qualifier against Mexico, and the buzz that was around the stadium and across the city for the 2-3 days prior to the match. I mean, even on the flight when I was on the plane going out to Ohio, I can tell you it was unbelievable what was going on. And then we all got in the stadium, and they started to announce the lineup, and everyone started looking at each other, going, "What in the world is Jurgen doing?" And it bit them. And then they turned around and used basically the same lineup and the same tactic down in Costa Rica and got blitzed. So things had run stale. Obviously, the players' trust was broken with Jurgen Klinsmann. And I think the few folks he did have left, myself included, who were on board with him, for me, Columbus sealed the deal. And now Bruce Arena faces a very tall task. And when you look at the other strikers in the pool, to cycle back to Dom Dwyer, it really makes sense to have him in as soon as possible because you are facing a must-win situation. Giassi Zardes is in the camp in January, coming off of an injury. Juan Agudelo, still young, but highly inconsistent. Jordan Morris had a great season for Seattle, but not sure if he's going to be higher than Dwyer on the pecking order, though for the future, Morris has a great upside. But you have to look at this as we need results now. Do you bring him in?
I think I'd be surprised if he didn't bring him in. These games fall at the end of March, and this is for all of these. 3 out of 4 of the names you mentioned: Dwyer, Zardes, Morris, and actually 4 when you throw in Josie too. They're only going to have a couple games under their belts. If Dom Dwyer comes out and scores a few goals for Kansas City to start the season, I think he's definitely in. I have a feeling he's going to be in regardless. I think the Bruce is going to say he's a striker. We need to bring him in because you could be at home to Honduras or away in Panama. You need a goal. You need to throw extra strikers on. Jordan Morris might already be out there. Maybe Zardes, something happens to him. So I think he's going to be the 4th striker in that mix, because or even 5th, I guess you could say. But for me, Zardes is going to be a midfielder with the Bruce, especially with Dwyer becoming available. He doesn't have to play up top anymore. He can play out on the left where he plays for Los Angeles. And then you have your Josie, your Bobby Wood, Dom Dwyer, Jordan Morris, all looking to 2 strikers, 4 guys, 2 spots, but you got 2 options coming off the bench. Jordan Morris, probably a little bit different player than a Dom Dwyer, so what do you need? Who do you need to bring off? What do you need to freshen up there?
When you look at this, there's 8 matches left in qualifying. You don't want to panic yet, but the U.S. is in a point where they probably, out of the next 4, need to take 7 points, if not 9. 12 is a tall task to go to Azteca and get a result, but you want to believe that they should at least be able to take 7 points. It throws them back into the mix, and then you take your shots down the end. You'll have Costa Rica at home, you'll get Panama at home, and then Trinidad at the end. I think it's going to now be imperative that they take 6 points off of them. But that said, you do need to get results, and if Dwyer can help you get a result, you got to have him in.
Yeah, for them, it's all going to come down to March. 4 points is the minimum. You got to get the 3 against Honduras at home. A point in Panama. With the way Panama played the last hex phase and even this one, they're not the Panama of old. They are a much better side. Getting a point there, I think, would be acceptable. Getting 4 points up on the board from those 2 matches, you'd rather have 6. But I think 4 is the minimum. And then, that sends you, home against Trinidad in June, should be 3 points. Now you would have 7 or 9, hopefully, going into Azteca, where, again, hey, you get a point there, great. If somehow you muster 3, that would be superb. But, it's hard to not look that far ahead. The Bruce isn't. He's focused on Honduras being played in San Jose, California on March 24th. And for me, and I don't think we want to go too deep into this, but, Timmy Howard comes out with this foolish statement, do some of these players have the heart and commitment? And he's basically taking a shot at the Americans who were born in Germany. Dom Dwyer was not born in America. Is this going to be a problem for Timmy Howard? Is he going to question his heart and his commitment to the national team? Because basically he just painted everybody who isn't born within our borders with that broad brush. Foolish statement.
He's put himself in the same realm as Abby Wambach with that. I think
Timmy, walk it back. Just do it quickly. Walk it back. Listen, anybody who comes in, there's going to be commitment because all these guys want to play in the World Cup. Let's not kid ourselves here. Just because one person cries during the national anthem one sings and one stands there stony-faced. It doesn't mean the guy who's not singing, it means less to him than somebody else. For me, that drives me nuts. They should all be singing anyway. But, that's another discussion for another time. But I don't think for some of these guys it's a lack of heart or a lack of commitment. I think some of them aren't good enough. I don't think Timmy Chandler is good enough to play on the national team at this point in time. I didn't think he was the last couple of years. I wouldn't question his commitment or his, I'll say, the effort. He's just not good enough. There's a difference. And I think Timmy may have been able to save himself a little grief if he said some of the players aren't good enough maybe who were brought in. That I think is more accurate. But I don't think to question their commitment to the cause is as accurate as it should be. Yes, they may not understand the U.S.-Mexico thing. Aaron Johansson might not understand it as much, having been away for a while. But I wouldn't question any of them and how, what it means to go and play in Russia in 2018. That's the pinnacle that for these guys on the squad, to be fair, are they going to win the World Cup if they go to Russia 2018? Probably not. But getting there is very important as a professional player and as an international player.
Well, I think that's really the punchline in the whole thing. You can question what you want, and Timmy, backtrack, buddy, just do it. But the goal is they're chasing a common end goal. If we want to get to the World Cup, no matter what country you do this from, it would be like the Canadians, somebody coming out and saying, well, Scott Arfield, what's he? This is a guy who's not a lick of Canadian, but he's with us, and you can't fault the Federation either for going out that way, because let's face it, we aren't developing deep enough of a talent pool at home where we can sit there and say, all right, Fabian Johnson, see ya. Jermaine Jones, see ya. This guy, see ya. You're born here, but you lived in Germany. We don't need you. We're not at that point yet where I think we can say we don't need you. And first off, we're in a unique position where we can harness that if they're good enough. And I agree with you. Timmy Chandler's not good enough right now. But there are players out there where not everybody in the world has this opportunity where we can have some high-level players developed on somebody else's dime. Think of it from a business standpoint. We have American players who want to play for the United States, being developed by somebody else, and they're a step ahead if they are. And I think a player like Fabian is generally above the rest of our outside backs and even some of our wing midfielders. Who's the United States Federation to say no? We're in a unique position. I think there's really only probably 3 countries on earth that can pull this off to improve themselves. We're one, Canada's 2, and the Australians are the 3rd one, where they have a lot of players who have Balkan ties.
The Irish too.
The Irish too can do this with the amount of their populace that's gone over to England. It's difficult to say no. I understand their position that if you're homegrown here and you get it more, you're going to beat for it harder. But it's not necessarily the case. You look at a guy like John Brooks, who's basically spent his whole life in Germany. He's got Chicago tattooed on one elbow and Germany tattooed on the other, and this is a guy who's seemingly down for the cause.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that they have to remember when they go to make these statements are these guys are Americans. They're not paid mercenaries. They are Americans, and that's good enough for me. You're an American, you play. Why is it, because you were born somewhere else, and then in the next breath I'll be, they'll say, we should be tolerant of everybody, but then they're going and saying, well, because they weren't born here, that's not good enough. No, they're Americans. Just because, and for some of these guys, remember Ernie Stewart. You're telling me it didn't mean as much to Ernie Stewart? He wasn't born in the United States. But his dad was an American serviceman. That's kind of, I think, the John Brooks story is, he had one parent who was born overseas, but, he's here. This for him is his country. And to me, that's the only criteria. I don't buy much of any of this other stuff. Are you going to question? Here's another guy to go back to. Are you going to question Tab Ramos, who was born in Uruguay? Was he not American enough to have the heart and the commitment? No. And I think, that's just some of the things that we need to remember is they're American, they're eligible to represent us, and they will if they are good enough. What I don't agree with is just bringing players in and playing them because they are Americans and were trained in another country. And we'll just use the Timmy Chandler example for that. He, for me, is not good enough to just say, well, he was born in Germany and he learned how to play there means he's better than what we have here.
Well, no, I think that's
a no-no. And if that's what was going on,
then that's a problem.
And maybe it was. We're not
there.
on the ground floor. And maybe that's a little bit of what Timmy was trying to get to, but didn't express it properly. And if that's what he was saying, then yes, that's the correct point. Was just because they're from they grew up in Europe as Americans, it doesn't mean that they're better than some players here. And we have better right backs, I think,
then we need to use
Timmy
them.
Chandler.
Yeah.
And that's where I would say if he was going in that direction, that I understand. Yes.
Well, I think that's really even what I was trying to get at when I said, we have that benefit of players who were trained overseas and may be better. But like we said with Chandler, if they're not better, then don't use them.
Yep.
And you have to wonder if there was a little bit of a bias against MLS from Jurgen Klinsmann's regime. And I'll admit, I'm openly critical of the quality of play and development in MLS, and it's gone 10 times better than from where it was 10 years ago. Now I think I've kind of focused my shift more on the opening of the foreign player rules than anything else, because if our league isn't serving our national team, then who the heck is?
Yeah.
And I think that there's, we claim to have a hard limit, but we kind of let that go. That's another topic for another day. But I think if we have a better right back than Timmy Chandler, who's playing for, the Chicago Fire or the New England Revolution or the Los Angeles Galaxy, then we owe it to that player to be in the roster, whether he was born in Bosnia and his parents moved him here when he was 2, or if he was born in Oxnard, California, and his family, his grandparents are from Mexico.
Yep.
Move things along. Final portion of our first podcast here, Corner Kick Extra. Alex Fydryszewski, J.J. Pepe, with you. The NASL, MLS, USL, the expansion boom in professional soccer in the United States is going on right now. It looks like there is NASL interest in San Diego with some high-hitting investors that are professional soccer players currently themselves. JJ, care to elaborate?
Yeah, the club that's come to the fore is Albion Soccer Club. They're probably about 25 years old, or 30, 35 years old, somewhere in that range. They've been a youth club for years. They are now in the U.S. Development Academy. They had the NPSL side to go with it. And they drew about 2,000 supporters a game last season, which is very good attendance for NPSL. They were able to bring in some local investment, and then they brought in a couple big hitters. Demba Ba, this is the group that he is involved with. There might be rumor of another 1 or 2 players, I think.
Hazard was thrown around.
Hazard,
Demba Ba actually mentioned him on the show
when he was in the
with Ronaldo at the convention.
Yeah.
He didn't necessarily throw it big time out there, but he said one of the most famous guys quote, this is his quote, "We have some players in our group of investors. One of the most famous guys is Eden Hazard, very close friend of mine. He's excited as well." So clearly then, for me, from Ba to Ronaldo, that means Hazard is a part of this group.
Yeah, and Albion came out and said, hey, we were in talks to come in 2017. Obviously, you had all the issues with NASL. I'm putting it down now. They've survived. They fought through. They got rid of traffic completely. They weathered this storm of losing a few teams, some bad owners, getting knocked out. The one thing I did like seeing was they're not rushing Albion to come in and bring that San Diego market in for the fall season. They're putting the brakes on, saying let's look at 2018. So spring 2018. I think that'll let the club get into a really good spot. They're going to have a great line there. That's going to be one of the first NASL clubs, I think, to have the full boat. They've been in the youth system for so long that they're going to have the pipeline coming. Now not stopping at MPSL. Now they're going to go all the way to professional. So right now you'd say NASL striking the first blow in San Diego, but it's not going to be the last.
Southern California colleges could be hurting after this one.
USL is, I know that they have a group, although I don't know the details of who may be in it. They're looking to get a team there. Obviously, the Don was there a couple weeks ago. With the Chargers leaving, San Diego becomes a very attractive market because of they're looking at the Seattle vacuum that happened when, even though it was the Supersonics leaving, it opened up a spot. They still had NFL and baseball. It's a little different in San Diego because now you really are the Padres left.
The Sounders really did a number on the Mariners. Their numbers have fallen off. And baseball in general, I always argue, I know we're a soccer podcast, baseball in general, I think you are going to see a big decline in attendance over the course of the next decade in baseball. The younger generation, say around our group, that 40 and under group, baseball really wasn't our primary sport growing up. By that point, it had turned a little bit, and now forget it. I think young kids are more attached and addicted to soccer than they are to baseball. Not to say baseball's going anywhere. The TV deals are huge. There's still big, big demand for baseball, but baseball is an older sport, and I also, from just quickly a baseball standpoint, I worry for their minor league setup because as the population shifts, the baby boomers are getting older. A lot of them, they're looking to move to Florida, to South Carolina. The baseball teams in the AAA, AA markets of the North, they might suffer, and there will be an opportunity for soccer to come in and knock them out.
And I think that could happen in San Diego. Yes, the Padres are a major league team, but when was the last time they were really good? Was it 98 when they went to the World Series that year and lost to the Yankees? Since then, not that good. So you could have that opening of, hey, they want to spend their dollars somewhere else. You might have some football fans there, some basketball fans that don't like baseball that much, want to try something else out. There's talks of, Qualcomm Stadium, I think that's what it's still called. That is in the mix. The question is, does Albion or the USL side, do they try and play there as is and reconfigure it? Do they talk about knocking it down and rebuilding right on the spot, a stadium that would cost $800 million less than an NFL stadium? A couple $100 million versus $1.2 billion. What do you think the civic leaders might get behind a little bit, maybe be a little more open to helping? Not financing, but just saying, oh, we can do some breaks here, pay back here, let's do some stuff here. Maybe they can work a little package, but that's going to become a very interesting market. A lot of people are concerned about Tijuana. Oh, well, people just go to Tijuana and watch a game on the weekend. Not necessarily, because if an MPSL side is getting $2,000 a game with Tijuana there, what is an NASL side going to get, a USL side going to get, or even an MLS side? The Seahawks leaving, I think, changed the dynamic a little bit for MLS in that city. And the question becomes, if there are two investment groups there with teams, will one make the play for we want to start here and get to MLS? And, the way things have been going lately, it seems like the USL sides are more apt to try and do that now. And I know Minnesota came up, but I think they may have been the last right now of the current NASL sides. Tampa said, we want to go, we're leaving NASL to go to USL to get to MLS. So it's a nice little dynamic there that's going on.
It seems to be the logical step forward, that it will be, USL to MLS. And that's not to say now that, again, I think it's important that the NASL stays on its feet because you need to have a healthy level of soccer in America, because you have to figure one day down the road, you and I have speculated, MLS 1, MLS 2, 20 and 20, that's 40 markets. USL, you're going to have another 30 markets in the USL. Maybe that even gets divided up one day, 20 and 20. And you still want to have the NASL is your next 20 markets. You know, there's no reason to say that in this country we can't get to a point within the next, let's say, liberally decade, conservatively maybe 20 years, that there's not 100 to 150 professional soccer teams in the country. And with 350 million people in the United States spread out across all of this region, there's no reason to say that it shouldn't be even higher than that at some point. And I think it will be. It's just going to be a case of how they organize it all.
Yeah, and, you know, I think anybody who thinks MLS is going to stop at 28 teams, I think we're all fooling ourselves if we think that's it. I think in the end, when you have, you know, in this round of expansion, 10 communities, 10 cities, 10 investor groups that want to get an MLS side, after you get through 4, are you going to say, no, we're not going to take another $300 million to bring in more? You know, another 2 teams at $300 million. So if people want to pay the money, it's a sport that you can go that high. But at some point, yes, I think they do divide MLS a little bit. You know, USL is there. I think they'll always have that reserve team feel from some of the MLS sides and filling in some of the holes. I think the NASL has finally come to realize, after the problems they've had, that they have to take this. We're going to go and try and be a Division I league as well. I think that's been put to bed. They realize that's not happening. You know, breaking, I think, with Peterson is going to give them a better public face. I'm not going to say that they weren't in negotiations with cities for expansion, investor groups. I think he blew it so far out of proportion that when people started asking questions, it embarrassed these owners. The Miami FC owner, I think, came out, and it was really smart with what he said, which is, we have to reconnect with our fan base. We have to grow our clubs. We can't worry about trying to be something we're, to the effect of, we can't worry about being something we're not, which is Division I. You're not Division I. You're not going to be. It's not going to happen. U.S. soccer is not going to stand for it. So go be the best Division II league you can be. And I think that's what they're going to try and get to. And I think Peter Wilt was right. I think with him being involved and maybe taking a bigger role in what's going on with the expansion, they're trying to get some, you know, list of credentials in place that you have to have. I think they could be. He said it could be an 18-team league in 2018. I think they could get to a dozen to 14.
And then a year after 2019, 2020 being at that level.
And I think this waiver that U.S. Soccer gave is going to go for 2 seasons. I'd be surprised if either league had all the boxes checked off in 2018. That just, especially with some of these USL teams, when it involves a stadium, that's harder to get done, especially if you have to work with government. I think it's going to take both of them maybe 2 years. And then I think what's going to happen is both leagues are going to have everything checked off. And that's where it's going to get sticky for U.S. soccer. NASL talked about, hey, maybe we can get with USL and have almost like in the old
Super League.
NFL, AFL, and that's how the Super Bowl came about. Oh, we'll have our champions play each other to see who is the Division II champion. NASL threw it out there a little bit publicly. USL, tight-lipped, you know, kind of asked the question and gave the politicians' answer, which means they didn't answer the question. I don't blame them. But you could see that. Maybe there are 2 D2 leagues and they have that, you know, they each run their own championship, and then you have the ultimate, you know, D2 champion at the end of the season.
I think for me, and I'll put on my lawyer's cap. I didn't go to law school. I didn't take pre-law classes. I just, you know, you've been involved in business for 20 years. I've been involved in businesses. For me, if I'm running a club, who ensures the second division final if there's 2 leagues coming together? How do you cover that? Is that U.S. Soccer provides the insurance on the event? And I think that to me is probably the only question that would stop, if I'm USL or NASL, both sides, from doing this. Who provides the insurance on the stadium, the security, the fans, the players, the coaches, the referees? Who ensures the event if something happens? If somebody has a catastrophic injury, are you not covered by the league's policy of insurance, the club's policy of insurance? Is it U.S. Soccer that pays for it? What if somebody runs onto the field? What if I'll go? There's that whole list of checks. If U.S. Soccer, though, I think the best way it would get done, U.S. Soccer steps up and says, "You guys play your tournaments under your policies, your rules. We play the final. We'll insure the event."
It's like the Open Cup.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what league you're in. If it's in the final, U.S. Soccer holds it, or it's split up into thirds. U.S. Soccer takes
a third, USL
NASL
takes
and
USL.
or it's 50-50.
Reasonable.
Because you have to figure this has been done before between the NFL and AFL. They could probably go back and see
What kind of policy?
even if
they
that was
had,
needed back then. Who
Right.
knows? That was such a long time
right.
ago. But
What
I'm
agreement
sure,
was in place?
I'm sure there's something there where they can split costs and cover it and take care of that. And then that's one of those you can set the location ahead of time and put it somewhere nice and figure out what you want to do.
San Diego, San Antonio,
Miami,
Tampa Bay. Yeah,
I
those
could
nice
live with
warm weather
that.
climate in December. I think that would be a good place for us to have media passes too.
Yeah.
But JJ, this has been really good.
Mm-hmm.
We actually ran over. It was kind of like a Monday show, about an hour. We went into stoppage time.
Yeah.
But
as you do.
it was a really good start to the
Mm-hmm.
podcast. Again, this will be a weekly event as long as we're available.
Mm-hmm.
We're planning on doing an hour a week. We'll tape this Wednesday or Thursday. It'll get posted within 24 hours. And then I also have a duty of starting to post our Monday shows because we need to start building this. And I think we've got a future with this. Hopefully everybody's going to enjoy this. The information on how you can contact JJ, myself, us for the show, things like that, if you'd like to be a guest on the Monday show, it's all on your screen right now for the Twitter handles and the email for the station and things like that. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can feel free to do so. JJ, final word.
No, good first show. Looking forward to next week. Looking forward to a good weekend of soccer here. Hopefully we'll get to see some moves within MLS transfer-wise because we know Europe is going to be quiet, I think, for the rest of the month. No big players are going to be moving. But it's going to be nice to see MLS start to get back into preseason. And, the countdown is on. CONCACAF Champions League, about 4 weeks away. MLS season kicks off about 5 weeks. I wish I had the
Keep that
calendar in
date
front of
free
me.
for yourself, by the way.
So it's going to be cold in Red Bull Arena, but
You can
we'll
stay.
get
You,
that
you
done.
stay on our couch. You do the beer coat thing.
Yeah.
We have a spare bedroom. You'll be fine.
All right.
Alrighty, thank you very much, everybody. We'll be back with you again Monday night for the next live corner kick on CWTAP, Service Electric. If you're in the Lehigh Valley, channel 126, 84 in Brooks County. If you're on the Jersey side and you have service, channel 126. Or you can check us out online. That information for the website for the Ustream is on your screen. Have a great one, everybody. God bless.
The E.F. Butts Insurance Agency, located at 3333 West Emmaus Avenue in Emmaus, has been serving the insurance needs of the Lehigh Valley since 1946. E.F. Butts Insurance is a family tradition passed down from generation to generation of Lehigh Valley resident. E.F. Butts Insurance covers a wide variety of home, life, auto, and business insurance. John Yelovich and his staff are an independent agency, meaning they work for you, not the insurance provider, to get fair coverage and service from a carefully selected group of insurance providers. E.F. Butts Insurance is open Monday through Friday from 9 to 5 and can be reached at 610-965-2824. That's 610-965-2824. Be sure to visit them on the web at www.efbuttsins.com. That's the E.F. Butts Insurance Agency. Above all, in service. The podiatric practice of Dr. David Hay Jr. is celebrating their 60th year of quality family foot care in Emmaus in 2016. At the podiatric practice of Dr. David Hay Jr., we provide a wide variety of services from pediatric to geriatric care of ankles, feet, heels, arches, and more. We know that when your feet hurt, your whole body hurts, making podiatric care an integral part of human health. We perform most procedures in our Emmaus office and also offer procedures at Lehigh Valley Hospital. Dr. Hay also makes in-home and nursing home visits. After 60 years in Emmaus, the Hay family practice has no intentions of slowing down or retiring anytime soon, and in fact, they have expanded their staff to now include Dr. Jason Fisk-Bear, an Emmaus native and EHS grad. Dr. Fisk-Bear has attended Penn State and Temple throughout his medical education and training, and now comes home to Emmaus to join the Hay family podiatric team. The office of Dr. David Hay Jr. is open Monday from 8 to 5, Tuesday from 8 to 8, Wednesday from 8 to 4, Thursday from 9 to 5, and Friday from 8 to 4. They are located at 680 Harrison Street in Emmaus and can be reached at 610-965-9410. That's 610-965-9410 for the podiatric office of Dr. David Hay Jr., where we treat you like family.